Hey guys, I just got my Sport Kontrol Pro coilovers from coilovers.com, and let's go into the unboxing and see what we got coming in for us. So I'm just gonna pull it out here. We got the rear springs packaged nicely in the back, as well as the adjustable mounts. They go in the bottom with their rubber gaskets to protect your car, because if you didn't have these, it would go metal on metal. Here are the instructions and the adjustments for your damper and some other tools that you're gonna need for the install. Assuming this is the struts. These are the rear struts. They also come with adjustable dampers right up here. So that's also nice. And then your height adjustment just goes over here. These in here on the side. This is the other one, just to show you guys real quick. And then the fronts are just over here. As you can see, with adjustable camber plates at the top, pillow ball mounts, all the adjustments over here. Everything is kind of loose, so I just have to adjust it myself, and then we can go from there. So yeah, let's check the other one. And here we go. This is the other one. Alright, and then we're taking this bad boy out. Very, it's had a long life, 165,000 kilometers on this. So just to give you a quick look on the steps that we're gonna have to take to install the coilover in the front. We're at the front left of the car. We're gonna have to remove these cables over here. This is your ABS and brake lines, just to help, because these attach to the strut assembly right over here. We're gonna have to remove one of the adjustable control arms that bolt right over here. We're gonna have to remove this bolt that also attaches to this side of the bolt. And we're also removing this nut over here that holds in the axle to the brakes. This will all help us remove this old strut out, and then once the coilover goes in, because it is smaller, it's going to be way easier. Lastly, we are going to try and use an air hammer to knock this down a little bit. It'll help us take this out. If it doesn't work, we're going to use a splitter tool over here to help us remove the bottom of the strut out. So let's see how this goes. So we're just taking the clips out here, and it flew off to space. It's okay, we can find it later. It's not a huge deal. And these cables should really just pop off. And all the tools that you're really going to need over here is an 18 millimeter. The 18 millimeter is going to fit right in this nut over here on the bottom of the strut, and right on the top here for the control arm. Ideally, we should have a 12 point, but we only have a 6 point over here for the axle nut, but it fits pretty snug, and I'm pretty comfortable in using this right now. And lastly, an MT14 12 point nut as well that will help us hold the bottom of the strut right here, because one part will hold and the other one will spin. So word to the wise, do not attempt this at home. Do not use a 26. We actually dug in a little deeper, and we found a 12 point that fits. We tried doing it with a 6 point, and it kind of wore it a little off, but this one fits in pretty snug there. So for the top of the coil, our top strut mounts are like literally right here under this plastic cowl that's all around. It's very easy to take this out. All you need is a 13 millimeter. Sometimes you'll have little caps on top of these wiper blades. You remove these nuts, and then you push the wiper blade towards the car. It should break loose, and then you can take these out. You pull this rubber towards the engine bay, and it also should come out pretty easily. And then you just kind of lightly remove this plastic cowl from over top. And then we should have 3 12 millimeter bolts over here that will help us remove the strut. So this is the top of the strut assembly for the front. You can see there's the 3 bolts right over here, and this is where you're gonna access to adjust your camber and adjust your dampening with a dampening tool. After a bit of a struggle, some of our bolts weren't having a good day, we managed to put the coilover in. Now, I haven't done any adjustments with anything in terms of the preload. It does come preloaded, but the height, I just kind of set it up so I can put it in. So you can see where the cables hook up here to the assembly, and all the bolts go back where it's supposed to. So yeah, we're just buttoning everything up, and then we're gonna go for the rears. Now for the rears is the easy part. If you've done the front, that's all the battle. The easy part is in the rear. There's literally 3 bolts that you have to take off, and then basically reassemble everything. So there's 1 bolt over here, and then there's 2 bolts over here right under the liner. You don't really need to remove your liner. If you just tug on the liner a little bit, you can definitely fit the tool in there and remove the top mount of this strut. And then make sure that when you're removing the bottom spring over here, make sure you have a jack underneath, because this spring is under pressure and you don't want this to fling at you. So make sure you have a jack under here that you can slowly release the pressure so you can pull the spring out. Now the only thing that we're going to be reusing in this setup is the top strut mount. We didn't reuse anything in the front because they gave us all new parts, but we're only using the top strut mount, and that's very common for most coilovers at this price range. So as you can see, we removed the rear spring. Now, I mentioned earlier that the only thing that we're going to be reusing is the top mount of the strut, but I forgot to mention that we're also reusing the top bushing for the spring and the rear bushing of the spring, so you don't want to remove those. With these adjustment plates too for the spring, you want to make sure you remove this bolt off the bottom. This one is a little tight, so I'm going to use a little tool. It comes with a little plate. You screw this on the bottom. Now, I've done the other side, so I'll show you the other side already to show you how it looks like. But as you can see here, the plate screws in right over here, and then the spring sits right on top of the perch over here. I forgot to put the rubber mount over here, so I'm gonna have to go back and adjust it. But just as a pro tip, when you guys are installing the rear coilovers on these cars that have the independent suspension like this with the strut and the spring in a separate assembly, you want to make sure that you put the springs in first, because that's really what's gonna dictate your height. Put the springs in first, put the wheels back on, then lower the car and see if that's the desired height, because if that's not the desired height, you want to adjust them, and then you match the strut to the spring height, because the strut really helps with making your ride more comfortable. So let's go on and install the springs, install the wheels, and see how the height looks like, and then we'll go on to the strut. When installing coilovers, adjustments are gonna keep happening, but we've got everything installed. So I'm gonna bring you guys in closer so you guys can see how everything looks. As you guys can see, the spring is installed with the top and bottom mounts, OEM mounts used here. You can also see that we have everything bolted up like I showed you earlier, because that's where the adjustment cup is right up here. Then we just bolt the strut here, reusing also the OEM top housing that uses on the strut. Your dampening is right over here, so I recommend you adjusting your dampening ahead of time. If you spin it to the left, it hardens. If you spin it to the right, it softens. I kind of left it a little bit in the middle. I'll first want to see how these feel on the road before I continue doing any more adjustments. There you have it, guys. These are the Sport Kontrol Pro coilovers from coilovers.com. They were a huge help for me getting these in time. Let's see how these hold up with time. But I think they're going to be great. The installation wasn't too bad. They look like high quality. So I'll give you guys a review later on.